What's going on, guys? Hey, as always, y'all know me, still the same OG with Full Send MMA. It's a big ass weekend. It was a very, very big weekend. UFC 284. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to break down the entire fight between Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkanovski, a highly contested unanimous decision for Islam Makhachev. We're also going to get into a couple things. We got Lasergate. Apparently, someone was going to bring a laser into the stadium disguised in a diabetes needle, and he was going to shine it in Islam Makhachev's eyes. We've also got Dan Hooker making some outrageous claims on Twitter. Well, maybe they're not outrageous, but without any evidence, we don't know, right? Dan Hooker is claiming that Islam Makhachev is cheating. He's using IVs. So, yeah, let's get right into it, boys. Right, first things first. Let's talk about the main event. UFC 284, Perth, Australia, the undisputed lightweight championship of the world on the line, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter title on the line. Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkanovski. Round one, Alexander Volkanovski comes out. The crowd is fucking electric, right? One of the best crowds I've ever seen in MMA. And Volkanovski comes out. They're kind of, moving around the outside, feeling each other out, judging their distance. Volkanovski keeps throwing this feint uppercut. He'll move, he'll step, and then he'll kind of just feint an uppercut. I don't know if he's throwing that out there because he's saying, Islam, hey, look, if you're going to shoot, this is what I'm going to, I might not throw it, but I want you to think that this is going to be coming at you if you're shooting for that takedown. And at this point, the crowd is electric. I mean, the fight's just starting, but there's already chance of Islam's a wanker, Volkanovski. They're going absolutely bananas. So Volkanovski, like I said, he's throwing this feint uppercut. And another thing he's doing at the very start of this fight, which you'll see throughout the entire fight, he's switching stances a lot. Orthodox, southpaw, southpaw, orthodox. And in the beginning of the first round, he actually catches Makhachev with a left hand. He comes in on Islam Makhachev, and he quickly switches stances to southpaw, and he cracks Islam with a straight left hand. So like I said, Volkanovski's coming out. He's throwing feints. He's switching stances. He catches Islam early, but this is where Islam kind of takes over the round here. Islam Makhachev isn't using his hands to judge the distance because obviously Volkanovski has the bigger reach. So what he's doing, he's using his kicks. He's starting to kick the front leg of Alexander Volkanovski, and eventually this is what Volk gets caught by in the first round. So Islam starts to throw a couple of range-finding kicks to the lead leg of Volkanovski. Volkanovski comes in, throwing a bit of a wild combo, and as he's coming in, Makhachev is able to get that distance, and he actually drops Volkanovski in the first round. So then after this, I think it's about a minute 30 or so into the first round, we see Islam secure a takedown, and this is what's basically going to win him the first round, in my opinion. He secures the takedown. He also has dropped Volkanovski in the first round, and he ends the first round having taken Volkanovski's back. Of course, Volkanovski gives one of these to the crowd, signaling he's okay at the end of the first round. But one round in the bank, Islam Makhachev. Start round two, back to a little bit of the same. Volkanovski, again, is feinting with that uppercut, telling Islam, hey, if you're going to shoot, you're going to have one of these coming up the middle, i.e. Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades. He's switching stances again. Like I said, he's constantly doing that throughout the fight. Orthodox, southpaw, southpaw, orthodox. Islam again, range finding with those kicks. And near the beginning of the second round, Volkanovski actually drops Islam this round. I don't know if we can call it a drop because at the same time, Islam secures a takedown. In my opinion, it looks like he catches him, but Islam just ends up staying on the ground, grabbing onto that single leg, and eventually securing a takedown. And then with about a minute 35 in the second round, Volkanovski is actually an orthodox. And you see this one a lot. When guys commit to a body shot and they drop down fully and they put, everything into that body shot, they'll be okay. But when you sort of half commit to a body shot, leaves yourself open for counters. That's when Islam kind of cracks Volkanovski in the second round. Volk is back in orthodox stance. And like I said, he kind of throws I wouldn't say half-ass, but not a great body shot to Islam Makhachev. And Islam comes right over the top, counters him, makes Volkanovski stumble back a little bit, and puts Makhachev on the offensive. Now, this is what's basically going to secure round two for me, in my opinion, in the favor of Islam Makhachev. Yes, you can count the knockdown for Volkanovski, but you can also count, Islam countering, Islam getting the takedown, and Islam pressuring probably the rest of round 2. Islam was on the offensive pretty much the whole round, other than the beginning when he was cracked. So call it what you want. At this point, I have Islam Makhachev up 2-0 through 2 rounds. And it's interesting to note, going into round 3, the bookies had Islam up as well. Islam was minus 300. Live odds going into round 3. Yes, I know the live odds don't mean shit, judging by how the first fight of the night went on the judges' scorecards. But in a fight like this, I would like to say that minus 300 going through 2 rounds into the 3rd round, the live odds being minus 300. Yes, you got to have Islam Makhachev up 2 rounds at this point. So round 3 is where Volkanovski starts to pick it up a little bit, right? There's a lot of back and forth exchanges, but it looks like Volkanovski, he said to himself, all right, I need to win this round. You're seeing some nice leg kick punching combinations thrown by Volkanovski on Islam Makhachev. And like I said before, he's switching stances. He's throwing a lot of feints in there. There's actually a grappling exchange at one point up against the fence where Volkanovski ends up getting the offensive position and the better of the grappling in this round, in round 3. And this is where, he sort of takes over the round. And then with about 35 seconds left in the round, like I said, Volkanovski's kind of been on the offensive, stuffed a couple of takedowns, reversed a couple of positions in the grappling. He is coming forward in the orthodox stance. Islam Makhachev obviously standing in the southpaw stance. Volkanovski comes in, he throws like a 1-2, 1-2 combination. Islam is moving, basically cycling to the outside of Volkanovski's jab hand. He's moving away from Volkanovski's power hand. But while he's throwing this 1-2, 1-2 combination, Volkanovski's able to secure a trip on Islam Makhachev's lead leg with his own front leg. So in my opinion, round 3, we're going 2-1 Islam Makhachev at this point, 1-2 to Makhachev. Like I said, 2 was very, very close round. And round 3, we're giving Alexander Volkanovski. Finished very strong with that trip at the end of the round. Now, this is one to look at going into the 4th round because the live odds were at about negative 285 going into round 4. Slightly better for Volkanovski, considering last round was minus 300. And this is something I want to point out because I don't know if a lot of us heard it during the fight, but Volkanovski's corner, they're talking to him, and Volkanovski looks at his corner and he goes, how did I do that round? And he says, did I lose the first 2? I lost the first 2 type thing. And his coaches kind of reassure him. They go, it doesn't matter. We're going to win the next 3. So the next 3 being obviously round 3 that just happened, 4 and 5.
How was that round?
Your false leads, that's
That was a better round, yeah. So what do you mean?
It's close, that's our round.
You know what I mean? What? I lost the first 2.
Pardon?
Did I lose the first 2?
We're going to win the next 3.
So for a lot of people that were arguing, those first couple rounds, even Volkanovski was sitting on the stool at the end of round 3. He wasn't sure. Did I lose those first 2? How did I do this last round in the 3rd round? And like I said, he comes out, started round 4, and he is, again, the underdog, Islam Makhachev, minus 35 live favorite going into the 4th round. So started round 4, about a minute in. Like I said, they're kind of, feeling each other out for the first minute of round 4. And, Volkanovski actually throws a dick kick, whatever, they acknowledge it. Not a big deal. They go right back to fighting. And, about 10, 15 seconds after that, Islam Makhachev throws a straight left hand and it connects. It connects pretty well. Volkanovski acknowledges it, kind of gives him a head nod. And I will point out halfway through round 4, these significant strikes are 45-36 for Islam Makhachev at this point. So Islam's landed a straight left hand. He's up on the significant strikes and he goes for a takedown in the 4th round. He gets Volkanovski to the ground, and I think it's either John Anik or Dominic Cruz even at one point. They get the takedown and Volkanovski's kind of looking at Islam Makhachev's corner while he's on the ground, and he's kind of talking trash. And I'm not sure, like I said, if it was John Anik or Dominic Cruz, they kind of, they acknowledge it. They're like, man, I don't know if Volkanovski had a little bit of a lapse of judgment right there. He lost his focus a little bit when he was talking trash to the corner. But this, Volkanovski ends up pushing himself up against the cage, getting him out of the center of the octagon. So he's doing better defensively, but now he's got Islam Makhachev on his back, and this is basically what ends the round. Now, you can say what you want. Islam didn't have, he didn't throw a lot of strikes from the back at this point, but it's hard to argue that, this isn't one of the most dominant positions in MMA because it is. When it comes to grappling, I mean, either full mount or the body triangle with back position, you're in a good spot. You're in a good spot if you're on the offensive at that point. So yes, Volkanovski is defending well. He's kind of throwing punches over his shoulder, over his head. Just little chippy shots at Islam Makhachev. He's preventing the rear naked choke from being put in. He's defending well. He's talking a lot of shit to Islam. But I mean, if we're looking at the rule book, this is, like I said, one of the best positions offensively in MMA. You've got a guy completely controlled. Volkanovski isn't getting out of this position for the end of the round. He makes one move. Islam Makhachev is going to get the rear naked choke in. So I guess we got to give that round to Makhachev, right? Right? I mean, it's hard. There are very few scenarios when a guy can have that position and still lose the round. I know a lot of people are going to say it's damage. Oh, damage, OG, but I just don't think we're at a position judging wise yet where they're going to give a guy a round from his back. But I mean, that being said, Volkanovski gets up. He is fired up. The crowd is on their feet because, he was talking a little shit. He didn't get choked out. They pounded the crowd. Izzy's on his feet. But regardless, the live odds, minus 355 in favor of Islam Makhachev going into the fifth and final round. So the start of round 5, looking to be, in Islam's favor to start the fifth round. He's throwing combos. He's throwing left hands. He's throwing those knees up the middle. He's had a couple of those land. I think he opens up a cut on Volkanovski. But here's where it turns around. And this is where I think a lot of people are going with momentum and the crowd noise and body language at the end of the fifth round. Volkanovski starts to stuff a couple of takedowns. At about 110 in the fifth and final round, Alex Volkanovski is standing in the orthodox stance and lands an absolute cracker of a right hand. Drops Islam Makhachev, gets Volkanovski top control. He's sitting in full guard right now. So with about a minute left in the fifth and final round, you've got Alex Volkanovski on top after a knockdown. He's in front of his home crowd and he's where he wants to be. He loves throwing those ground and pound strikes from top control, right? So to finish the fight, we get a minute straight of Alex Volkanovski in top control. There's obviously that picture out there where you see Islam with the little bruise by his eye and he looks like he's tired. So with all that being said, the fight ends. Alex Volkanovski gets to his feet. He throws his hands in the air. Obviously, the crowd is going fucking bananas at this point. But Islam Makhachev also gets up, puts his hands up in the air. How does OG score it? OG scores it 3-2 Islam Makhachev. I am scoring it the same as I did on the night of the fight. I'm giving 1 and 2 to Islam Makhachev. I'm giving round 3 to Volkanovski. Round 4, Islam Makhachev, and the fifth and final round to Alexander Volkanovski. 48-47, unanimous decision, in my opinion. It should have been. I don't know where the 49-46 came from. I really don't see what round they could have given. I don't see how they could have given Makhachev 4 rounds, but it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, you only get one shot at judging this thing, so. But here's what I want to point out. Volkanovski's stock was already high. It was already high going into this fight. And with the amount of people that now say that he won this fight and the response that he got from his hometown crowd, his stock has gone through the fucking roof. Alex Volkanovski's stock could not be higher. And if you want to make the argument that Islam Makhachev is still the lightweight champion, but Volkanovski is still the pound for pound best, I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that argument. So now, after all said and done, I do want to also get into a couple of little things. First of all, Lasergate, somebody on 4chan, and it made its way to the Reddit boards as well. They had put something out saying that they were going to bring a laser hidden inside of a diabetes needle, and they were going to shine it in the eyes of Islam Makhachev during the fight. They said it was going to be brought out and tested during the Jack Della Maddalena and Randy Brown fight, and then they were going to use it fully during the Islam Makhachev Alexander Volkanovski fight. Lasergate, they're calling it. Absolutely ridiculous. I just don't even know what to say to that, to be honest with you. But then we got to talk about today, right? Dan Hooker throws some tweets out there calling Islam a cheat. You know, he had originally said, you know, somebody was using an IV, and, you know, they flew all this way halfway across the world and they were going to use an IV, and, you know, they thought that we weren't going to find out, but he wasn't naming names. So it could have been anybody. It could have, you know, there was a bunch of city kickboxing guys on the card. There was Tyson Pedro, there was Shane Young, there was Alexander Volkanovski. So it could have been any one of their three opponents. But a couple hours later, he name dropped Islam. He name dropped Islam. He said that Islam Makhachev was cheating. He was using an IV. And what do we know about IVs? IVs are now illegal. They're not allowed to be used anymore. The advantage being, you know, it allows you to rehydrate after a weight cut. It was allowing guys who were, you know, way, way heavier to cut down to a certain weight and be able to hydrate and get back to being healthy. Another point was it had something to do with masking, you know, gear, juice, steroids, whatever you want to call it. There's a test they do, and I don't want to get too specific about this because I'm not a science guy. There's a test they do, and they look in your blood, and there's something about like plant proteins or plant cells or animal cells or something like this along the lines. And what the IV is able to do is it's able to mask out the plant cells or the plant proteins or whatever it may be that they look for in this steroid test and basically null and void it. So what it's doing is it's taking whatever steroids that you might be using and it's nullifying it because of the IV. So the test isn't detecting it. So it's basically allowing you to cheat. So these are some pretty heavy accusations from Dan Hooker. Like I said, there isn't any evidence. You know, the old saying, innocent until proven guilty.
You're a
right?
fake,
You can't just go and
lying
throw out
rat.
some heavy accusations like that in some tweets without having actual proof. So this is an ongoing story. We're going to keep an eye on this one, but that was very interesting to wake up to this morning, was Dan Hooker seemingly going off on Islam Makhachev, calling him a cheat. As always, boys, I won't keep you too long. Let's wrap this one up. OG has it 48-47, Islam Makhachev. 1, 2, and round 4. I gave Volkanovski 3 and 5. We looked over the fight. You know, you can go back. You can make your own opinions. You know, you can clap back at me. OG, I disagree with that. I disagree with this. That's fine. I love that. I love that. But after watching the fight for the second time, analyzing it, showing you guys some clips, that's my opinion. Islam Makhachev, still the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. Pound for pound best, there's an argument to be made. There's an argument to be made after that one. So to finish it all off, Full Send MMA. Throw us a comment, throw us a like, hit that subscribe button. As always, y'all know me, still the same OG. We'll see you next time, boys.